Hey guys, Zero here. Welcome to Learning C# Part 3. Today we're going to expand upon our previous calculator project by creating a calculation log, which will add each calculation to the end of the current log file, which will be stored in a plain text document. We will learn how to read and write plain, non-serialized data to and from a text file. First, we'll optimize our methods and code. Then we'll change the way our program works by implementing commands and instructions so the user can switch between different functions without having to restart the console each time. So if you'll remember before in the previous video, I told you that we could write our 4 calculation methods much more cleanly and much more efficiently. So that's what we're going to do now. And we're going to do that by adding an argument for the operator and using a switch statement to select the operator in the function. So we'll again use a public static float, and I'll call this do math, and it'll be float x, float y, and string operator. And we'll use a switch statement to switch between operators, and then we'll write our 4 cases. Actually, we won't use a break in this case because we have returns instead. We don't need to write this each time, we can just copy and paste it. Boom, 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 boom. Plus, minus, divide, multiply. We just change the operators. And then since there's an error with this, it'll be the fact that we don't have a return on all code paths, so we'll need to write a default statement for our switch. And the default return will be 0. If there's an error, it'll just return 0. And that will complete our new calculation method. You can see this is much more efficient code lengthwise. Now we'll need to rewrite our main method and implement a command system. So to do this, we're going to take all of this code, we're going to cut it out, we're going to create a new public static void calculate. So calculate will be one of our functions. And instead of writing this, we can instead write that, and then we can so not only did this chunk of code get a lot smaller and more efficient, but this code also got a lot smaller and more efficient. We could do more with it, but at the moment we don't need to. So another good tactic for programming is commenting as you go. You can comment what you're going to build, what you've already built, and what it is that you've built and what it does. So I'm going to write a comment here for a function that I'm going to write in a moment after we write our new main method. So before we continue, we'll import the system.io namespace. That'll allow us to use IO operations. So we're going to do exactly what is written in the comment. We're going to write a function here that checks on the first time the program's run whether or not the log file exists. So if not file exists, and then it'll take a path as an argument, and the path is going to be the environment dot working directory. Oh, sorry, current directory. And then we'll slash log.txt. So this will be our log files directory, and it'll say if it's not exist, then create it. So our current directory in the environment class will give you the directory on the file system where the exe is being ran from. So we'll need to create a file stream, and I'll call it file checker, and we can get a file stream from the file.create method. So we'll create the file at this path, and then this will open, but it will not close the file, so we'll need to do file checker close. And for the sake of memory and being clean, we'll also dispose the file checker because we don't need it anymore. Now to keep the program alive and stop it from closing, we'll use a while loop. So while, and then we want it to always be true, so while true, and now this will continue to execute indefinitely because while will always be true. So inside of here, we can write a switch statement, and we'll use console.readline as our dynamic variable. Now we can write our commands in cases, such as calculate, and this will just run the calculate command, and then break. And that's how we write a command for our program. So we can add as many commands as we want, but we're going to work with just a few here. We're going to want a function to load our log file. We'll want something to delete our log file. Oops. We'll want something to close our program. And we can use environment.exit to close our program. It doesn't make a lot of sense that we put the break after environment.exit because the program would already be closed, but the compiler requires it, so we'll have to put it anyways. We'll want a help function, and this one we'll just write to the console. We use this to allow the user to locate the exact path of the log file. And then we can just paste this in there. And we'll use case default to tell the user that they are inputting an incorrect command. these commands will be case sensitive, but if we don't want them to use case sensitive, we can send everything to lowercase and just use lowercase information. And to do that, you just add on to the end of your string to lower, like that, and then you can do it that way as well. Okay. Now that that's completed, we can test this out. So if I write help, and then if I write science, alpha, Romeo, help, help, none of those commands work, except for help. But if I write calculate, we can now run our calculator application, and then we can run it again. Now we want to create a log file for our calculator. So we'll need to write a few functions to handle I/O operations. So I'm going to start with public static void load logs. And I'm going to write public static void log result. And then I'll write public void delete log. So our delete log is going to be very simple. We'll just copy this down, get rid of the exclamation mark, and then file dot delete, and then copy this again. And I'm going to go ahead and put this inside of a try statement just to prevent any errors. And now we have error handling for that as well. So if there's an error, it'll go into console. You'll be able to see what the error is. That's done. Oh. Now let's write our log result file. And we'll just go ahead and wrap that in a try statement as well. And we'll use file.append all text in this situation. And before we append any text, we want to do environment dot new line. So we'll create a new line in the document, and then we will write our information. We need to put the file path before that though. So we can copy that from the delete function. Grab that out of here, slap it in there, and you're good to go. And that'll be all for that function. And close that down. And we can uncomment this, and we can write in our information. So we want result, xval, yval, and operator. And now we will write our load log function. So again, we'll put that in a try statement. I'll just go ahead and copy that to be faster. And we'll use read all text to read our log file into the console window. So we need to grab our path again, slap that in there, and that should be good. And I think we're good to go. I'll just fill out the available commands here. Now if we test our program out, let's run calculate. Now let's run load logs. As you can see, I'd already been doing some testing before, and this is our new result. So if I now delete logs, and I try to load logs again, we'll get an error because the file no longer exists. So that's because when we delete the log file, we no longer have a file there, and if we try to do anything with it after that, we'll get an error. So we can do this again after the delete occurs to create a new log file. Now if we try this again, we no longer have an error. I think that will conclude our episode for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.